this? Who is Owlman? Who? Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Starting off with the packaging, and we can see it's one of those big Build-A-Wave window boxes. This time we're collecting to build Starro, the Conqueror. Otherwise, we have our name and logo down here. Name and logo on the side, legal on the bottom. Then again, this is the Crime Syndicate, illegal on the bottom, and the UPC for those who want it. Looking around back, and I've got some observations. The first thing you'll notice is that we have no idea what's coming last. Obviously, it's his lower extremities, but is he going to have any kind of base, or are we just going to have to lean him on stuff? We do get a pretty spiffy picture of Starro over here, and down here is a really depressing journey. We start with some high quality figure photography, and then 2 really boring digital renders. No idea who's coming last. Whoever it is, will he have comic art, figure photography, or a render? Place your bets in the comments below. Even so, for packaging, I'm giving Owlman 1 whole point. Moving on to presentation, an Owlman stands at 7 1/4 inches. Full disclosure, except for when they were on the Justice League cartoon, I'm not really familiar with the Crime Syndicate. Leastways, I'm not enough of an authority to tell you how accurate this is to the comic. I'm really just judging this as an action figure. From the top, and we have that horrible side eye. Well, you can't see it, but you just know it's there behind the goggles. All joking aside, this is a pretty cool head. I do like the focus on the goggles to evoke that owl feeling. They've got a telescoping quality to them. Batman's typical triangular nose has been accentuated to feel more like a beak. I also like how the mandible wraps around the jaw. We still have points, except this time it's more like a great horned owl instead of a bat. Looking at this, I can totally see Batman underneath. I also really appreciate just how straightforward and simple his actual mouth is. It's not overdone with too much texture or line work. I really wish more Batman figures were like this. Moving on down, we have some pauldrons that evoke feathers, flipping them around, and that goes all the way down the cape. I love how they were able to work in those scallops even though he isn't a bat, and even the logo's a nice little send-up. We still have a black, gray, and yellow color scheme, and the gray in particular is a really nice matte finish. Also, thanks to the design, the diaphragm joint is very well integrated, more doodads on his sides, and then traveling down the arm, instead of having fins, he has these sort of feathery points. Between this and the clawed hands, it kind of reminds me of Black Panther. Just like Batman, he has a utility belt. This one's all nice and pouchy. With a new buckle, it could work really well for Batman. Some great texturing in the legs, and then flipping him up, here he is from the back. As with most modern Batman designs, he has some knee pads and some pretty cool boots. Batman's boots point upward as a triangle, but this one points down. It's a small, striking feature that lets us know that we're looking at the inverse of the Batman we know and love. He also has a new and improved McFarlane ankle balls, which blend in great, and some pretty good tread work underneath. I might not know Owlman from a hole in a wall, but I do know a good action figure when I see one. The sculpted detail, paint applications, and proportions are all on point, and while this might not be Batman himself, there are enough clever design choices to make him unmistakable. For presentation, I'm giving Owlman 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and Owlman might be from a different universe, but this articulation is the same. From the top, and his head's on a dumbbell joint. You can look up this far, which isn't too bad, and you can look all the way down, pretty decent tilt, and, just like an owl, all the way around. Well, to be fair, owls don't spin all the way around. They really only spin about that far, but they do it so fast you just can't tell. Moving on down, an Owlman has swivel hinge shoulders that raise up over 90 degrees. I expected the pauldrons to get in the way, so it's a pleasant surprise. Forward and back with a rotator cuff, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and McFarlane wrist balls that swivel and hinge. Shifting the torso, an Owlman has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. Instead of a torso being tucked into the diaper, the ab section is on top. He can arch back this far, which is really good, and you can hunch forward this far, which is a lot better than usual. This new system is pretty good, and I hope that McFarlane does more with it. And of course, he can still tilt and twist. Below the new and improved waist, Owlman has a typical McFarlane hips. They can kick forward 90 degrees and do a perfect split. Great amount of twist at the hip, and then moving down he has double jointed knees, toe articulation, and again the new and improved McFarlane ankle balls that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. Not only is the articulation in this figure every bit as good as usual, but thanks to updated engineering in the waist, it's even better. For posability, I'm giving Owlman 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and Owlman has a trading card and a figure stand. Pause here if you want to read it and find out more about Owlman and the Crime Syndicate. More importantly, Owlman comes with the arms of Starro. They actually have that really strong vinyl smell that I absolutely love, and much to my surprise, they're even bendy. Zooming on in, and there's an incredible amount of detail. You can see all the suckers on the underside. I hear tell there's one born every minute. Also a great wash to bring all that detail out. If I had one criticism, it would be nice if there was some blue in there, but it wouldn't be hard enough to dry brush on. Most importantly, Owlman has his very own Starro to love and snuggle. He's got some translucent eyes looking all around, more suckers and a sinister mouth underneath. No bendy wires, but he's a soft enough rubber that he'll probably wrap around pretty much anyone you put him with. Owlman himself, for instance. But playability is more than just having a tentacle monster to keep you warm on cold Saturday nights. It's also about how well your tentacle monster plays with others. Starting with the Bat family, and here we have Mattel and Multiverse versions of Damian, as well as Mattel and Multiverse versions of Tim. Here we have DC Essentials and Multiverse versions of Batgirl, and then DC Essentials versions of Nightwing and the Red Hood. Looking at the legs and boots, I think this could make for a pretty good Red Hood custom. For some Batman villains, and here we have Deathstroke, DC Collectibles Designer Series Riddler, DC Direct Alex Ross Scarecrow, DC Direct Hush Scarecrow, and Arkham Knight Scarecrow. Here we have Hush, Mattel's Arkham City Two-Face, boy do we need a new version of him, DC Direct Poison Ivy, DC Essentials Harley Quinn, Designer Series Grey Capullo Catwoman, DC Direct Killer Croc, and then for the Joker, here we have Mortal Kombat 11, 3 Jokers Comedian, and my own custom Kit Bash. For some other evil alternate reality Batmans, here we have the Batman Who Laughs, and the Drowned. Here we have Dawnbreaker, for an evil version of a different hero, and here we have Parallax. But for some other heroes, and here we have DC Essentials and DC Multiverse versions of Green Lantern, as well as DC Essentials and Multiverse versions of The Flash, and the King of Atlantis, Aquaman. For a couple of Wonder Women, and here we have the New 52, and the Gold Label one designed by Todd McFarlane. And then for some Kal-El comparisons, here we have DC Direct, New 52, Action Comics 1000, Brandon Routh, Page Punchers, and Rebirth. For a relative scale comparison, here he is with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. Of course, if you're interested, I guess we could do some Batman comparisons and head swaps. That said, I'm mainly just going to be showing Batman heads on this body. First we have Detective Comics 1000. Right off the bat, no pun intended, you can see just what a difference a head sculpt can make. Logo aside, this is unmistakably Batman, and while I'm not a big fan of this head sculpt, here, I don't really mind. Next we have Flashpoint. I love this head sculpt, but I'm not sure that I love it here. To my eye, it seems a bit too big for the body, but of course, you can be the judge. Here we have Dark Knight's Death Metal. While not identical, this head's very similar to Flashpoint. Again, for a custom Batman, I think this would work great. Just for the purpose of size comparison, and here he is with 3 Jokers. The necks aren't compatible, so a head swap isn't possible. Here we have DC Rebirth. I'm pleasantly surprised to say this one doesn't look too bad. Normally, this head's too small for anything, but in this instance, the proportions are pretty good. And if you wanted to, I think this would make for a pretty interesting custom. Next up is The Dark Knight Returns. Personally, I think this is a bit too stylized. It's also way too big. Even so, I don't really show this head off a lot, so I figured it'd be worth a shot. Also, YouTube user Samariba333 asked what this head would look like on the Page Puncher body. As you can see, it's still a bit big. Still, I hope this helps. And if you were curious about the other way around, here you go. Definitely a bit on the small side. Here we have Future State. I always like this head on other bodies, and I particularly like this one. The faceless mask really adds a whole different attitude to this figure. And just because I was really curious, here's the other way around. Head swaps on this body never disappoints. Next up is Dark Detective. I feel like I say this every time, but if you got rid of the ears, it wouldn't be bad. And I mean it, the proportions are pretty cool. Maybe one of these days I'll make a custom earless version so I don't have to keep saying it. For a couple of movie versions, and here we have Batfleck. Thanks to the goggles, this looks really cool. Not only that, but all the detail makes this pretty passable for your live action shelf, and it definitely puts me in mind of Night Owl from Watchmen. That said, this is even more Night Owly. Definitely some fun potential here. And then, even though I don't think anyone's actually interested in seeing his head on the Owlman body, here we have Battinson. I don't really know what I was expecting, but this doesn't really work for me. And then lastly, for my new favorite Batman head sculpt, here we have Page Punchers. This is quickly becoming my favorite McFarlane Batman head sculpt, and I love this. The proportions are absolutely fantastic. and I think this would make for a great custom Batman. On his own, Owlman is a lot of fun. I'd be a liar though if I said that Starro isn't my favorite part of this figure. It's the rare instance where an accessory is meant for other figures instead of the one that came with it. For playability, I'm giving Owlman 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Owlman is a Target exclusive and retails for $24.99. A versatile accessory and the makings of a great Build-A-Figure add a lot of value, but even on his own, Owlman is a hoot. For price, I'm giving Owlman 1 whole point for a grand total of 5 out of 5. For more head swaps, check out this video on Page Puncher's Batman, or for another evil version of a popular hero, check out my newest video on Parallax. If you're picking up this wave, is it for the Crime Syndicate, Starro, or both? Sound off in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.